Arr, grog.
We've got a new wrong-un in Ambridge. Kieran.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to see what he looks like, the actor?
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, good heavens. A very angular face. Quite nice eyes. But you wouldn't want to be on the other end of the aggressive side of him, which he was definitely showing towards poor Lily, wasn't he?
Yeah, more so to Lily than when Ben was about.
Now, what is that all about? How did he... Because they went out to karaoke, didn't they?
Yeah, he's latched on to them. I mean, they've done what any self-respecting people in their young 20s do. At 6:45 in the evening, they go to karaoke after a big takeaway.
That's all manner of wrong way round, isn't it?
And Ben arrives, and Paul says, "Oh, that smells nice." And he went, "Yeah, it's just a bit of takeaway." And he went, "Oh, I've got a lager. They were on offer." And he goes, "Okay." And then he says, when Josh gets back from walking the cows in, Lily's coming, and we're going to karaoke. And by the way, this takeaway's for 4. What is going on here?
It's all, arse over tit.
Wouldn't you just say in the first place, "Oh, this takeaway's for you as well, so don't bother cooking"? Or was it meant to be delivered as a surprise?
God knows. All nonsensical. The lager was on offer. Do they ever sell any booze in the shop that's not on offer?
I think Alice had to pay full whack for the vodka. I mean, everyone's brought a dodgy hanger-on home, or you've been out with mates. You know, it's the stereotypical thing, isn't it? Like a bachelor party where someone says, like, "Do you mind if I bring my mate? He's sound, don't worry." And then 5 minutes later, this guy's fighting the whole pub.
Yeah. He wanted to play darts, was asking where the spirits were. So the first things he was saying were quite they were quite violent and a bit OTT immediately. And Lily straight away was like, "Oh, keep it down. Can you be quiet?" Blah, blah, blah. Paul passes out, practically feels ill immediately, leaves Lily and Kieran because Ben's gone off to find some manky old duvet in case Paul's sick. And Kieran's like, she says, "Oh, I'll call you a taxi." And he was like, "Well, Paul hasn't asked me to go yet." And she went, "Oh, I don't know what she said, pardon or something." He went, "I think you heard me."
Yeah, she said, "Sorry." Yeah, and he said, "I think you heard me." And she went, "Well, he's not in a fit state to make that decision." He went, "Well, that's your opinion." He also said when they got in, "Where's your bedroom? Paul and me will go up together." Dodgy.
It is dodgy. Hopefully Lily will tell Paul all of that and voice her concerns. But from what I gather, this Kieran is going to appear again in the future, isn't he? I think
I would
people on
say
Twitter
so.
have said, they've seen that he's... Damn!
Anyone that walks into your house sees a dartboard and goes 180. That's immediate. That's red flags immediately, isn't it?
At least think of something different.
A bullseye gag, yeah. You can stay. You're getting action tonight if you can make a Jim Bowen reference. But if you just say 180, it's not happening, mate. Sorry.
So we don't like him. Bit worried for Paul if he's going to show up again. He dashed outside to call himself a taxi, so he buggered off, thankfully. At the other end of the week, on Sunday, because that was all on Tuesday, Kate calls on George, Will, and Emma in massive conversation about what on earth they're going to do next and this pickle that they're in. And she was delivering leaflets, wasn't she?
Yeah, is this pickle that they're in, are they going to be serving it at the Flower and Produce show?
Yes. I did wonder whether she had in any way overheard them when she was on the other side of the door, but she showed no sign of having done so.
They've just been telling George, this plan is absolute whack. You can't just say that you saw Harry running away from the scene of the crime, and then Kate comes in to give the overnight sleepover Cosmos night or whatever it is she's planned. And George goes, "Oh, glad you're here, Kate. I've got something I want to tell you." And then Will immediately sees what a shit plan it is, doesn't he? The moment he opens his mouth. Because Kate said, "I thought you'd never seen Harry before." Now, if George has half a brain cell, at this point he says, "Yeah, I saw them walking through the village, or I saw him coming out of Alice's house once, but he doesn't. He says, which is very believable for a 19-year-old who's obsessed with TikTok, yeah, I saw him on an equestrian website.
Yep. I liked how Kate was just really asking really direct questions. But that sounds like a pile of wank, George.
Yeah.
Why are you mentioning that? It can't possibly be the case. And yet still he goes, doesn't he? Give this statement about it. The next thing we hear of him is him return in a right old panic because, of course, Harry's got an alibi because he was in rehab. So to that plan.
Yeah, fair play to Nina, who mentioned that she felt on her. She's mentioned on her Patreon. Wasn't Harry in rehab when all this was happening? Quite right. I mean, his hand was forced a little bit though, because Kate suddenly went, "Yeah, this all makes sense. I always thought I didn't like his
I've
aura
never
at all.
liked it.
Yeah, I'm going to call Alice's solicitor straight away." And he was like, no." So he didn't really have much choice then, did he? He
True.
had to go to the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just gets into, and then Will's in the car going, he told his cock and bull story to Kate, and then we had no. I was just like, mate, this is the worst of Will, isn't it? And I think this is where you can separate Ed and Will as people, because
Yeah.
George knows deep down where he said he'll because Emma said, I nearly told Ed last night, and suddenly George appears from behind a curtain and goes, what's this about telling Ed?
Yeah. You can't tell him. He's quite sensible.
It reminded me when Adam went for that interview at the Danforth Barton farm in a pub, and Ian thought they were having an affair. And the guy said, "Oh, so to toast the contract, should we have a glass of wine, maybe something stronger?" And Ian's head popped up from under the table. Goes, "He'll need something stronger."
Yes. Oh God.
Luckily,
So,
Azra's
yeah.
got a skip outside her house for all the recent storylines.
So what must the police feel about George going, oh, yep, I think I saw someone else there. I think it was probably Harry Chilcott. And they go, no, he was somewhere else. What on earth will George have said at that point?
Oh, he had a backup, didn't he?
What was it?
Maybe it was a jogger.
Oh. Yeah, that's probably it. Yes, I think someone did say that, didn't they? Christ. Yeah, the allotment, even less plausible of a story. That there's incredible garlic hidden underneath a ton of weeds that must be entered to the flower and produce show. And Ardill's getting very excited from afar about this and wants to see a video of it.
Well, he had some involvement with George in his social media, so maybe George can start doing flower and he's doing videos for the stables.
Mm.
Why doesn't he just start doing some videos for flower and produce show as well? I mean, if I were George, I'd get all of these gigs in quick because I can feel there's going to be a drop in demand for his services in the near future.
Yeah. You know that video, Alice was saying to Justin and Lillian, oh, well, I've cleaned every item of tack in the whole of the county. Now I'll crack on with the marketing for Cantering On. And Lillian said, actually, we've got George to do a video. And she's like, oh, I'll get involved in that. Straight away, I was thinking, right, George, Alice, video. Will something happen with that to do with confessing?
It's being teased now because Kate and Emma, miraculously, they both seem to have forgotten that about 3 months ago, Emma blew up like a whirling dervish in Kate's face when Kate asked if she wanted to come and be a cleaner at their house again before Peggy went to the Laurels. Yeah, and I remember how you humiliated me when I came and asked for money. So no thanks. I would never work for you and I never want anything to do with you again. But sure, I'll bring Poppy on the spiritual home.
Well, they had to get her into a tent with Kate and some very silent children in a tent in order that Kate could suggest some relaxation exercises and maybe meditation. And why don't we try hypnotherapy? Which got her thinking that regression could be done and that this might help Alice. Oh dear. And if this is the way that Alice remembers what happened on the night that she was practically in a coma through alcohol, then I'm sorry, but I don't like it.
There was that fair point that Emma made when, well, surely regression therapy won't work because she was just shit-faced.
Yeah. Is she just going to remember that she was shit-faced? What did she actually witness that would be memorable to her, I wonder?
her coming to and trying to exit the vehicle, I think. She remembers things, doesn't she? And there is more pointedly, she
Mm.
remembers that certain things didn't happen
Yeah.
that would
Okay.
have led to those events.
Yeah. Well, that'll be an interesting episode when she's regressing.
So Emma's totally shafted herself there. I was trying to think what other
Mm.
Archer's characters would remember through regressive hypnotherapy. I think Tony would just be like going, soup, soup.
No, he'd remember life before soup. He'd go far, way, way back to when he didn't have to think of soup.
Would he sing it in the form of a Cher song? Not the soup soup song. I mean, do you believe in life before soup?
Oh, the soup song.
Linda's charms, trying to get everyone to work at the flower and produce show and set up a stall. She rings David and Ruth.
Charms?
Well,
I beg your pardon.
I use that word very lightly.
Yeah.
David and Ruth are having second breakfast when she calls.
Oh, that's what they call it, is it?
She tries to talk them into doing a stall, and they're like, no, 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 no. Vince Casey's got one. Oh, we'll think about it.
Yeah. But then what they were going to do at this stall is make baked rice pudding.
Not just that. What was the other thing he suggested? French toast.
Oh, for God's sake. That's like eggy bread, isn't it?
They'll be smoking out the whole corner of the first. I mean, can you imagine? Ruth is going to be burning the crap out of eggy bread, and everyone's just going to be exiting away from this huge smoking mess in the corner.
It's really warm here at the moment, and I don't know if baked rice pudding is really a sort of late August, early September type of dish, is it?
Are you saying Ruth doesn't have her finger on the pulse when it comes to culinary efforts, Kerry?
Because at first they were going to do a stew of some sort, again, very summery, with their own meats, but Vince wouldn't like that, so they binned that off in favour of baked rice pudding.
And Azra, Linda kind of, after they have that bonding session, when she convinced her to go down and check out the allotment because Robert has been looking after Adol's allotment. And then the next day she brings around like some mashed aubergine and stuff. And she was like, sorry, I didn't make rice. Linda just says, oh, don't worry, Robert will knock up some chapatis. Of course he will, in between other things that he's doing. And she sold it to Linda on the basis, oh, it's just my leftovers from the freezer. I think at that point I'd be like, wait till the door closed and it would be getting scraped into the bin.
Yeah.
Who knows how long it's been in the freezer.
Not freshly made. How insulting.
But Az was there going, no, look, I'm not a country person. I'm here because of my job. I'm not going to assimilate. I'm not going to do a stall. Okay, I'll do a stall.
I did feel for her. It was horrible.
If this is your induction, why is she going in at the deep end and being part of the Bite the Bullet competition? Seems like a very dangerous thing to be doing.
Because one of her suggestions, Linda's, was that she gets involved in the excess veg swap. What?
She said she's not very good with the general public, and I was thinking the same thing. Linda said, but you're a GP, for heaven's sake. So I was thinking maybe she could judge the flower and produce show and bring some of her GP skills into that. So like, yeah, nice marrow, Mr. Fletcher. If you just bend over and I could check the quality of your plums.
She's going to do the book stall, isn't she?
I wasn't sold on any of that idea.
Oh no, like I was listening on double speed, and listening to Linda badgering someone on double speed is not pleasant.
Did you get that off Freddie?
Badgering someone.
The double speed.
Oh.
The episode description for Sunday was Linda badgers David.
Badger!
You should be careful with that, Linda.
And also we had Alistair put with his arm up to his armpit, pulling out impacted horse poo. That was nice.
Yeah, because Amir was rolling around looking a bit rough, and Alice diagnosed him successfully. And then Alistair said, just give him a few minutes, and if that doesn't work, stick him in a horse box, have a bottle of vodka, and drive around the village, Alice.
Yeah, he really likes it near that bridge. Particular favourites. Ambridge Pony Club, Jen, friend of the pod, she being a horse vet, I'm sure that's not the technical term, was
equine vet, isn't it?
That's it, equine, was I wouldn't say critical, but she had a very different viewpoint on how horse colic would be dealt with, and certainly would not have pulled out impacted poo because it can lead to torn anuses, and that is very, very dangerous in a horse. So,
I seem to remember one of the horses at Dad's got colic, and it was from eating like the straw with sawdust in it.
oh, but it can be, yeah, pretty chronic. And she didn't
Yeah.
recommend what he was saying about feeding Amir either. So, yeah, interesting.
But Alice got to it quickly. Justin is Justin. Everyone knows what we think about him. Not that appealing as a character, not a nice person by his partner's own admission, quite why you would stay in a relationship with someone who is not nice. And Lillian is there trying to be like the better half of the not nice couple. And
Mm.
obviously, she has a kind of an emotional interest in it because Alice is family. But she's saying, "Why don't you go up and say thank you to Alice because she kind of saved your horse's life?" And he went, "Well, she's just doing her job. We don't say thank you to traffic wardens for handing out tickets." No one in the history of receiving a parking ticket, I believe, has ever
It's a
thanked a traffic warden for their trouble.
thank you so much for all that you do and for this fine I now have to pay. Lillian felt that they should definitely show commitment to their valued worker. And then Justin was like, only the criminal justice department should decide whether she's to be our manager or not.
There was talk of easing Carlotta out, and Justin said, "Well, we have to think about if Alice goes to prison, that will affect team morale." I was like, "Yeah, it kind of tends to do that, doesn't it? If one of the team is actually in the slammer."
I mean, is there any part of you that can empathize slightly with the fact that it's not a good look to have someone who's going to trial for drunk driving, because that's all they know at this point, in charge of sort of a stables and kids on horses and things? It's how he does it, isn't it, really? You could have a conversation with Alice along those lines, saying, look, we need to just not suspend you, but we'll pay you half pay or until it's sorted, but we can't actually have you dealing with customers, maybe, or something, or be on the sort of face of the stables.
I asked you that question last week. Does Justin have a point? And I feel like that's what you're kind of asking me in relation to this week's episode. Yeah, he
Hmm.
does in a purely professional
Mm.
setting. It's not the message, it's the delivery, isn't it? That's the problem.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
like I said, it's also coupled with the fact that you've got Lillian, who's probably not
Mm.
behaving correctly either, because
Yeah.
her heart is slightly more invested in it, because it's her niece. So yeah, a tough one.
Aye.
But yeah, it's not a good look. I mean, if you were running a business in a small village, and trust me, I have kind of extended family members that work at a stables. If
Ah.
anything had happened in that community equal to what Alice has done,
Mm.
it would be all over the village
Yeah.
and it would be an issue.
Mm. Well, let's hope the regression therapy happens very soon. If she does sort of suddenly realise, does she then go to the police and go, I've remembered stuff before the trial?
Does regression therapy evidence stand up in court?
Don't know. Would this new evidence, in inverted commas, mean that there might not have to be a trial, or that, there still would be a trial, but for George then, wouldn't there?
Yeah, unless he pleads guilty.
Yeah, let's hope he does. Although I do want a court scene in a way. The only way I would want that is really to hear George being really questioned and how he dealt with that.
Yeah, I looked ahead at the full cast list for this week, and
Mm.
the only people other than the ones we'd expect are Kieran, the utter wrong'un,
Hmm.
and someone called Yasmin, who I'm going to hazard a guess is the hypnotherapist, because I saw on Friday something that mentions Alice has her memory stirred, presuming a memory is not a cocktail that she's ordering in Jack's. So on our Patreon this week, we did a omnibus that many people have asked us to do. It's Lower Loxley. It's the first week of 2011. David and Nigel go up on the roof. One of them comes down using the stairs. The other one doesn't. Kerry, it stirred up some emotion for you, that episode?
I really enjoyed listening to it again. Yeah, it was an interesting one because there was a birth and a death in the same omnibus.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the patron, you'll know who the birth is. You probably guessed who the death is by now. But yeah, I enjoyed going back and revisiting that. Just a couple of things. On the midweeker we did that was the points of view. Do you remember you had a fair bit of ire for Idiot Wind for saying, if you had 6 bullets, which 5 people would you shoot in the village after Brian? And you had some disdain for that suggestion. So I want
Yeah.
you to know that Idiot Wind got back in touch. I must make a confession and an apology to Kerry. I had a brain fart and meant Adam, not Brian.
Yes. Good. Because Idiot Wind has followed me on Blue Sky since I said all of that. So I knew we were still mates and everything. Great stuff. That makes absolutely perfect sense.
It does now. She wrote in brackets, was surprised the log didn't get a bullet. We decided to keep him around, didn't we? It's a bit
Yeah.
perverse. In relation to last week's main episode, Gate, Nina said, wasn't Harry in rehab when this happened? Yes. And she also said, don't bring Harry back in with his sniffing. Well, I don't know if we have a choice. I think he will be back in some capacity. Ella said, starting to think Ed will be upset Emma didn't tell him and he's going to go to Fallon to express his upset and they might explore their connection more as it's obvious Fallon and Harrison are not going to be together for much longer.
Yes, hope so.
Ian Morris said, this story is nonsense. Sorry, they would get DNA from the airbags. I was doubting whether the airbags were deployed. Laura said, oh, Matthew, the adverts were top class this week. Had me laughing out loud. My husband asked what was so funny. I couldn't explain.
No, it's not an easy one, is it, to tell to non-listeners? Where would you begin?
Joe said, there's a lot going on in that cider ad. Kate said, Ed and Fallon dated for a short while back in the day. It didn't work because Ed was still in love with Emma, about which he was in deep denial. Eventually, he came to his senses, broke up with Fallon, and went straight into Emma's arms. Fallon was heartbroken. She really liked Ed. So the soil is fertile for a reignition.
Not that I'm one to condone affairs.
Jess said, regarding Justin's irritation with Alice's continued employment, his penny-pinching soul can't stand that Alan... who's Alan?
He's the vicar.
Okay. His penny-pinching soul can't stand that Alice gets compensated much better for her time than a young outsider, and keeping Carlotta in employ might save thousands. Also, I bet he's addicted to the gamification of his machinations. It is all a game to him, isn't it? He's at the top of the tree. He feels like he can pick and choose which little people lose their job and which ones keep them. He's very much the Elon Musk of Ambridge, isn't he?
Yeah, it's going really well for Elon as well, isn't it?
Oh, God,
He's
yeah.
like Twitter's losing him millions by the second.
Yeah, he has Donald Trump on and he sounds like Daffy Duck.
It reminds me of another recording that I sometimes
It
do
certainly
weekly.
does, Kerry.
Yeah, he very much just treats people as pawns in his little game. Doesn't give a shit about anybody's feelings, does he?
Joe said, missed the deadline for the midweek gripes last week, but the fate nonsense is a perfect example of a long-standing annoyance. Is no one in Ambridge capable of planning ahead? Every event, every year is a last-minute panic to organise. Where can we find a celebrity to open it? The Hollerton Band is playing in Darrington. They're always playing in Darrington. Every bloody fate. You can't book those fuckers, can you?
Maybe they just say that every year and they're not playing there at all. They just can't stand Ambridge.
Yeah, that's the Silver Band equivalent of I'm washing my hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why wasn't all that organised months ago? I was contacted about a possible gig in Brighton a few weeks ago for next May. This is normal. The sort of panic that characterises every event in Ambridge only occurs when something unavoidable causes a last-minute change of plan, in which case the person cancelling usually recommends a substitute. Yeah, 100% agree.
Well, do let me know when and where you're playing in Brighton in May.
Oh yeah, Joe, yeah, let us know. Viv said, gosh, I've been listening to The Archers for over 50 years and didn't remember the Red Shoes episode with Nelson and Julia. So thanks for that little tidbit, fellow Patreon. Felt very emotional listening to the sorting out of Roy's prized possessions. Is what you'd do in real life when someone has died. I do wonder, though, if after a suitable time span the character will reappear in Ambridge, but long enough away for most listeners to accept the new voice. His voice was so particular, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
almost didn't change, like David's over the
Yes.
years. Keep up the good work and thanks for entertaining us. Sadly, your fantasy league is the wrong shaped ball for me. I'm rugby, but I do enjoy hearing how it's going.
Oh, that's nice.
Mim said, I spent 8 hours working on my master's dissertation over the weekend from a Starbucks in Cineworld lobby, in brackets, access to drinks, toilets, good parking, free Wi-Fi, plugs and aircon. I couldn't listen to any Cider Shed because you're too funny for me to concentrate. And she's also added, I didn't know I was doing this, but apparently I've been singing, uh-oh, boner alert, when I enter a room.
Mims. Uh-oh. Dawson Riley.
Boner alert.
My husband waited 2 days before asking why.
That's good.
Rebecca said, great episode. Thanks, M and K. Walter and Nelson Gabriel were really good back in the day, and Nelson's Wine Bar was a terrific place for things to be happening. I feel it was a kind of a transition venue for old The Archers morphing into modern The Archers. Nelson had an antique shop with Kenton, from which he scooted off to Colombia, South America, or somewhere and died mysteriously. All very glam, and no poster on the back of this door to pack up. Although, I admit, I was teary during Ian Pepperell's tribute on Sunday. Yeah, I mean, that antique shop went south again, probably due to Kenton, wasn't it, I think? He was part of the problem. And Louise said, this weekend we had to drive cross-country, and this gave us a chance to have a big old catch-up on the Cider Shed pods, including the latest historical omnibus. Now we're at a loss. This must be what sports fans feel like when the Olympics end. I know. I got up on Monday, just turned on the TV, and I was like, why aren't people jumping over water and running and beating the crap out of each other? What's happening?
Did you watch the closing ceremony?
I did. I lost interest about halfway. I started having to do something else. I can't remember what it was. And once I realised Daft Punk weren't showing up, my interest faded a little, I must admit. So yeah, if you want to support the podcast, listen to our midweekers and get the main episode early and ad-free, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/The Cider Shed and give us a little helping hand. 4 people have done that this week, Kerry.
Wow.
I know. Thanks so much,
Thank
guys. Yeah, much appreciated. First up, Simon Martin.
Hello there, Simon Martin. Thanks so much for becoming a Cider Shed patron. Big respect. Yours truly, the Cider Shed.
Whoop, whoop. Thanks, Simon. Next up, Marianne.
Greetings, Marianne. We proudly welcome you as a new Cider Shed patron. We are as pleased as to have you with us. We are at your service.
Cheers, Marianne. Thanks very much. After that, we have Charlotte Mitchell.
Welcoming Charlotte Mitchell into the calming ambience of the Cider Shed Patreon. Here you may relax, listen to all the back catalog of midweek specials, and learn the very meaning of life itself. Or just enjoy your jingle. Thanks so much, Charlotte.
Yay.
Thank you, Charlotte. And most recently, Heather Jones.
Heather Jones, we are honored to welcome you into the Cider Shed Patreon. Please run free and find all the previous exclusive bonus material. Your kind words sustain us.
Badger!
Yay. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather. Heather was very nice about the ads over the weekend. We had a little chat about the merits of either supporting Amazon or supporting independent podcast makers. And thankfully, at this point, she's come down on the side of the latter. So much appreciated, Heather. Much appreciated to all of you. Also, a special shout out to Ryan, who upgraded his patron this week.
Thank you, Ryan. Your contribution is much appreciated.
Badger!
So yeah, thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Another way of supporting us, writing reviews. Now, I want to give a little shout out to someone in our community, Angela, who's quite active on the Facebook and also an active patron. I noticed in a chat with another Facebook member that she mentioned that her mother had passed away. Now, Angela's mother, we had a back and forth quite a bit last year that she was having an issue posting the review to the iTunes page, and she kept trying and she couldn't do it. But eventually she used her daughter Angela's iPad. Angela is quite well known as Slasher's mum on some social media, I think when she wrote the review. And this was from Slasher's Nana.
The review was entitled Imposter Syndrome, and they've written, I have to write my review on my daughter's iPad because my review keeps vanishing. I've been listening to The Archers since day one, and I think it has totally gone to pot in the last couple of years. People like my son and daughter need your podcast to keep them in the loop. I know I'm old because 3 of my children are drawing their old age pension. This means that I am wise. I sometimes can't make out what the swear words are because of the bleeping, but I won't take a star away because of that. If this review comes up under my daughter's name, which is Slasher's mum, I will slap her legs. Love and kisses, Paddy McSpaniel. That's Slasher's Nana. Oh, that's so nice. And that was left for us, was that January?
Yeah, I did just double check with Angela and just to check that I had my details correct. And she said, yeah, Matthew, Slasher's nan died at the ripe old age of 90. She used to have a giggle at the Cider Shed podcast as she had been listening to the Archers from day one. And before that, it was Mrs. Dale's diary. Paddy's knowledge of the Archers was phenomenal. My brother and I caught a lot of it from her by osmosis. She also had an excellent Archers dance. Oh, I need to know more about that. She used to pay the patron subscription, which I shall continue in her honour now that I am an orphan and have nothing else to shout at apart from you two. Well, Angela, shout away. Much respect to Slasher's nan, Paddy.
Mm-hmm.
Rest in power, as I always say. Thanks for her lovely review. And just wanted to give her a little shout out on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Getting a bit emotional. Sorry.
That's all right. Not the first time one of us has had a bit of a moment.
Oh, yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the other socials we've got, as I said, we've got Facebook, which is a group called the Cider Shed Podcast. And you can follow us on Instagram, where I went a bit nuts last week. It's called @theCiderShedPod, and I posted loads of stories in succession, which I was enjoying a lot, including Jack Carlson saying, "Get your hands off my podcast." Kerry, the Twitter handle, which I refuse to call X, is the same as our Instagram, isn't it?
It is, @theCiderShedPod. And our Blue Sky is @theCiderShedPod.bsky.social. We've had quite a few new people follow us onto Blue Sky who were on Twitter. So I think there's been a semi-exodus going on from Twitter of late in the last week or so.
Dave Howard messaged us about that, didn't he, on Facebook? Well, he posted on our Facebook about it, and we had a kind of a bit of conversation about the merits of quitting and the morals of quitting. And it's just one of those things that, yeah, for the moment, it's not, the ownership is not great. The algorithms are not great. We're just trying. I just block and move on at the moment, but let's see how it goes. But lots of us have built up friendships over Twitter over, God, for me, like the 15, 16 years I've been on there.
Yeah.
So it's quite a weird thing to just walk away from. But yeah, we will see. I know eventually. I mean, I think I'm up to 2 or 3 posts on Blue Sky. I made my first one the other day, which was where I told someone that I dated Sean Maguire from Grange Hill and EastEnders' cousin. Very random, but that seems quite apt. What did you say we are on Blue Sky, Kerry? What's the
@theCiderShedPod.bluesky.social.
Okay. I just make a note of that here.
Thanks.
I couldn't remember if you'd said it already or if we'd just been ripping into Elon Musk.
Did.
Maybe you did. Maybe you did.
My laptop battery's about to die.
All right. Well, that's as good a time as any for us to get the hell out of here. So take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. I'm going to hypnotize Kerry and get her to tell us lots of juicy stuff about the 80s.
I look forward to that.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.